Welcome to the importance of practice from the Teachings of Musonius Rufus, Vegetarian, Part 2 of 2 on Words of Wisdom. Gaius Musonius Rufus was one of the great Stoic philosophers of the Roman Empire. He lived in the 1st century CE and was born in Volsini, an ancient city of Etruria that is now part of present-day Italy. His philosophy focused on the study and practice of virtue. He believed that everyone is capable of being virtuous. However, people who had not learned the skills of ethical living could not be expected to live without error. Thus, he lived and promoted a simple and frugal lifestyle, which included the learning of self-control, modesty, courage, and benevolence. He was a vegetarian and taught that being mindful of one's diet was a vital virtue. His students included Roman noblemen, senators, and future philosophers. In the years following, his wisdom continued to have an impact on later Stoic philosophy as well as early Christian moral thought. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, was his most notable student, whose principles were deeply influenced by his mentor. Although the works of Gaius Musonius Rufus are mentioned in the writings of Epictetus, most have been lost through time. However, his philosophical teachings in the form of aphoristic sayings and discourses were preserved by his students. This was later translated and included in Cora E. Lutz's book, Musonius Rufus, the Roman Socrates. Let us continue the discourses on training and what means of livelihood is appropriate for a philosopher, where students and teachers are encouraged to practice being virtuous for spiritual upliftment. On training. Training, which is peculiar to the soul, consists first of all in seeing that the proofs pertaining to apparent goods as not being real goods are always ready at hand, and likewise those pertaining to apparent evils as not being real evils, and in learning to recognize the things which are truly good, and in becoming accustomed to distinguish them from what are not truly good. In the next place, it consists of practice in not avoiding any of the things which only seem evil, and in not pursuing any of the things which only seem good, in shunning by every means those which are truly evil, and in pursuing by every means those which are truly good. It is true that all of us who have participated in philosophic discussion have heard and apprehended that neither pain nor death nor poverty nor anything else which is free from wrong is evil, and again that wealth, life, pleasure, or anything else which does not partake of virtue is not good. And yet, in spite of understanding this, because of the depravity which has become implanted in us straight from childhood, and because of evil habits engendered by this depravity, when hardship comes, we think evil has come upon us. And when pleasure comes our way, we think that good has befallen us. We dread death as the most extreme misfortune, we cling to life as the greatest blessing, and when we give away money, we grieve as if we were injured, but upon receiving it, we rejoice as if a benefit had been conferred. Similarly, with the majority of other things, we do not meet circumstances in accordance with the right principles, but rather we follow wretched habits. Since then, I repeat, all this is the case. The person who is in training must strive to habituate himself not to love pleasure, not to avoid hardship, not to be infatuated with living, not to fear death, and in the case of goods or money, not to place receiving above giving. What means of livelihood is appropriate for a philosopher? It would be reasonable to consider it even better for a strong person, namely earning a living from the soil, whether one owns his own land or not. For many who are farming, land owned either by the state or by other private individuals are yet able to support not only themselves but their wives and children as well, and some in fact attain even a high degree of prosperity by hard work with their own hands. For the earth repays most justly and well those who cultivate her, returning many times as much as she received and furnishing an abundance of all the necessities of life to anyone who is willing to work. And this she does without violating one's dignity or self-respect. Are not sowing seed and harvesting and threshing all occupations for freemen and befitting good men? Speaking generally, if one devotes himself to the life of philosophy and tills the land at the same time, I should not compare any other way of life to his, nor prefer any other means of livelihood. For is it not living more in accord with nature to draw one's sustenance directly from the earth, which is the nurse and mother of us all, rather than from some other source? Is it not more like the life of a man to live in the country than to sit idly in the city? Who will say that it is not more healthy to live out of doors than to shun the open air and the heat of the sun? Tell me, do you think it is more fitting for a free man by his own labour to procure for himself the necessities of life or to receive them from others? But surely it is plain that not to require another's help for one's need is more dignified than asking for it. How very good and happy and blessed of heaven is the life of the soil when along with it the goods of the spirit are not neglected. Pupils would seem to me rather benefited by not meeting with their teacher in the city nor listening to his formal lectures and discussions, but by seeing him at work in the fields, demonstrating by his own labour the lessons which philosophy inculcates. That one should endure hardships and suffer the pains of labour with his own body, rather than depend upon another for sustenance. What is there to prevent a student while he is working from listening to a teacher speaking about self-control or justice or endurance? For those who teach philosophy well do not need many words. Of the true lovers of philosophy, there is not one who would not be willing to live with a good man in the country, even if the place be very simple, since he would be bound to profit greatly from this sojourn by living with his teacher night and day, by being away from the evils of the city, which are an obstacle to the study of philosophy, and from the fact that his conduct, whether good or bad, cannot escape observation. A great advantage to those who are learning. Also, to eat and drink and sleep under the supervision of a good man is a great benefit. Therefore, let no one say that farming is an obstacle to learning or to teaching the lessons of duty, for it can scarcely be such an obstacle if we realize that under these conditions the pupil lives in closest association with the teacher, and the teacher has the pupil constantly at hand. And where this is the case, earning a living by farming seems to be most suitable for a philosopher.
Warmonger, condemned by the whole world and universes.
Generous viewers, it was a delight that you could join us today for Words of Wisdom.